Didn't really work out. We'll see what they want to go for here in game 2. The Lono's Mask Ratatoskr for Divios, I mean, he was doing no damage, and that's by design in the late game, but you feel like you need at least a little bit there?
A little bit. Now, his build is very cost effective. I wanted to touch upon it because he went for the Blackthorn Hammer in that game for 2200 gold with a recent buff going from 350 to 450 health, but reducing the physical power down from 30 up to 25 now. He's not doing any damage, honestly. So that's why he went Lono's Mask. His objective was just to disrupt people in the back line, knock multiple members up, slow whoever he can, stun, and then just get out of dodge.
I mean, it got to the point where in the late game, Luminosity wasn't even looking at him. I mean, it was irrelevant whether Divios lived or died. It was just, let's win the team fight. Other than that, I mean, ShadowChair is literally just walking past him as he's like, hey, stop! I'm trying to zone you, and I feel like you need some sort of damage to make the mages and the hunters respect you in those late game team fights. We'll see if he wants to switch it up here in this game. Is LG not switching too much up quite yet, but Splyce will. They ban away that Morrigan from Kiki this time, but Weekend still gets to go to Naja.
Leaves the Naja available. Weekend had a good job on the Naja. Couldn't really find too much synergy with ShadowChair's Scylla. Normally you go for the Naja into Scylla Crush combination, but ShadowChair couldn't connect on a lot of those ultimates, unfortunately. He hit some of them, but needed to connect a little bit more. I think he was the 4th player on his team in terms of the player damage chart, sitting at 21,000, and his 5th place Terra was at 17,000. So he needs to hit those abilities a little more consistently.
Not too far behind there for the support of Luminosity. Terra Chernobog locks in the duo lane. You'd expect, though, Divios does like to play as Terra in the solo lane, and ShadowChair goes right back to that Scylla, so Luminosity showing some confidence in their new mid laner that he'll be able to turn it around and have a slightly better game off that setup. And Kumbhakarna and Naja are truly the 2 best setup gods for any big damage mage ultimate.
That's the biggest alley-oop you'll ever find. You got one or the other. You can't really botch that one too hard. And then you got a long mess and then a root just for good measure. I don't think ShadowChair is missing many abilities this game.
Thoth, though, for moswal in that mid lane. Excited to see what he can bring with that one. The one weird thing that I will say is that Naja and Kumbhakarna have 2 very different timings with their ultimate, so maybe when you have both, you can get your wires crossed on, Kumbhakarna ultimate much more quick than Naja for bringing the targets back down. Hopefully ShadowChair will have his watch set as a couple of jungler bans, or at least one by Luminosity, taking away the Circuit from Cyno. No Erlang Shen ban quite yet, though. I think Naja Kumba can handle Erlang Shen okay. Naja might have some trouble because you have no real escape besides that ultimate.
Honestly, up against a Scylla, I'm surprised we're not seeing more walls potentially against her, forcing her to use that Sentinel prematurely and then look to cage her in. It's actually Splyce are the ones that ban away the Odin. They could even pick up the Kumbhakarna or Thor for themselves if they really want to shut down that little goddess.
Well, there is the Erlang Shen indeed for Cyno. Great setup for Thoth in the mid lane. I think that's exactly what Splyce is looking for. So now Luminosity has to try and pick something that can handle that. Medusa will be the selection for Clout. And I think this is a pretty good one because your Lacerate, that dash for Medusa, your 3, does end up crippling for a moment whenever you hit it. So you can stop out that 72 transformations pretty well. I think that could work out for him as Ratatoskr now. So you expect Ratatoskr in the solo lane, I'd guess, here for Kiki. Not the same sort of mage, but still not a warrior or guardian in that lane is now Nemesis. So maybe it is an Erlang I'm done, dude. I'm like, what's even the point of trying to predict these compositions?
What's
the point?
The only person I remember running Nemesis in the solo lane was actually Kiki, but it's Splyce with the Nemesis. That's true, actually. And I think that, if anything, we might see Divios running the Nemesis if you're trying to find some of those early kills. The way Divios is building Ratatoskr anyway, you might as well go for this assassin-like composition.
Maybe. I mean, you're not picking Erlang Shen with Cyno on your team and trading it, right? Like, you're not giving it to someone else. That'd be my guess, at least. What's your guess on who's going to win this game? Is it going to be Luminosity or Splyce? Good luck on guessing, because at least with that game 1 and now with these game 2 compositions, it's hard to get everything straight. Though Luminosity did look very, very good in that first game. Erlang or Nemesis solo? I'll put you on the spot.
Nemesis solo.
All right, Nemesis solo is Toli's guess. We don't have to guess much longer. Game 2 coming your way right now.
LG up against Splyce. A nice victory for LG in game 1, though it was a hard-fought victory Can they get it done here again in Game 2? Their hero from Game 1, KikiSoCheeky, not going to be on the Morgan, instead trying the Ratatoskr, and it will indeed be up against Divios and the solo Nemesis.
Did these two just like trade accounts for the day? And I feel like that's something that might have just taken place here, but Kiki trying, I mean, they're both trying to use their own gods against them.
Yeah, using the rat that they just saw that works so well, and we all know Kiki likes this Nemesis pick, but so does Divios. He's certainly shown some proclivity for it in the past, as there's aggression over on the duo side of the map. Geno has already taken a fair bit of poke, but instead will fall back. Splyce are just going to go towards their purple, but I don't think LG are going to let him have it for free.
Geno trying to see if he can steal this one away. I like the placement of the wall there, though, from Aror. Won't be a successful venture for Geno, but he's not done just yet. Heading on over to this red buff, and look who's right behind him. It's Clout, because he already finished pushing out that first wave.
And a good push up here by ShadowChair as well, to not allow for the easy wrap around by moswal to try and come contest either. So there really was no threat of anyone coming over there. ShadowChair would have had information on Cyno as well. So an easy strip away from LG, or from NotGeno and Clout, and they're able to come back to lane.
Oh, Cyno in a lot of trouble now, however. Got a sash taken onto him from Weekend, but the ring toss going to go onto moswal instead. Geno looking to force Cyno to be rooted. Purification beads will save him for the moment, but that's both pairs of beads on the mid and jungle from Splyce.
But that aggression almost ended up being costly, as Clout just barely defends the red buff in the 2v1 up against Aror and CycloneSpin. But Geno, with this early blink, is the one that almost set up that kill onto Cyno with a nice blink from around that red buff pit.
I like the use of shell there from Aror also, but Aror still looking to try and steal. Won't be successful, just like Geno wasn't. And now Luminosity still with the much stronger start. They've already pulled the purification beads from not just one, but two different members of Splyce, and they have the red buff timer of Splyce.
This has been a strong start for LG to get this game going, without a doubt. And they're going to see if they can try and keep this going. They've got a brief opportunity to capitalize if it's onto moswal or to Cyno. And we all know NotGeno early game can certainly get that done. Sash can be such strong CC when you're able to land it reliably. And we know Weekend can, especially towards the back end of that game. I feel like Weekend really started to play a lot better too. Him and ShadowChair both kind of I felt like they got into a rhythm and really started helping to turn that game around.
Sometimes things can be a little bit shaky at the start for NotGeno, especially when you're having to try and deal with the Habois, who probably is having a much easier time spamming you with all of that damage up front. But I do see right there with you, Finch. I definitely think that Weekend and ShadowChair combined their powers pretty effectively, and it worked out really well. Now Luminosity just looking to have a repeat instance as Cyno forced to dash away from Geno and Clout, and this is on the red buff respawn. Cyno not healthy enough to try and contest it means that this is another easy one for Luminosity to take.
Yeah, everyone from LG except for Kiki was there. They strip away the red buff, zone away Cyno, and they keep up the farming advantage. They're going to go take away the purple buff as well. This is a very quick advantage going the way of LG early on this game when it comes to controlling these buffs, and they're not done yet. Weekend can't quite land the sash. A great backstep from Aror to avoid it. That means he should be able to make it out.
But it's not a surprising lead for Luminosity when you consider the gods that Splyce have opted for. Now, however, could be ShadowChair in a little bit of trouble. Cyno with a great knockup means that moswal couldn't miss the evade and punish, so they do get ShadowChair's beats, which is important because they both will be approaching level 5 pretty soon here. So now the positioning from ShadowChair has got to be a little bit more passive. But this is just one advantage that Splyce have had in comparison to everything that Luminosity continue to take, because the early game, this is practically non-existent from Splyce.
Divios has done a great job, at least over here in the solo lane side, though, but we can stay competitive. Meanwhile, moswal is being taken up into the air. He's going to land right back down to the I'm a Monster. ShadowChair finds first blood. The new mage over here for LG is certainly looking comfortable.
Even managing to help finish off those left mid oracles in no time at all, and that's kind of just to be expected. moswal forced out of those beats so early on. They just came up off cooldown, so really well timed by Weekend.
And I want to clarify here, too, as that is a nice play there by Weekend. When I say ShadowChair is the new mid laner for LG, we all know ShadowChair is not a new player. My man's been playing competitive Smite for, like, ever, it feels like. So he's in and out, always up here around the highest levels, and he is new to this squad, but he certainly looks like he's back into the groove, at least through Game 1 and the start here of Game 2.
having an advantage in the early game, it's not necessarily always going to transition that well into mid and late, especially against a composition like what Splyce has opted for. But if you wanted to have it, this is definitely the way to start.
Right.
And now map pressure so heavily in Luminosity's favor in duo that just look at the aggressive pathways that Weekend's even taken.
Recognizes that he can be right here for that red buff steal one more time. Cyno, recognizing that they're behind on the left-hand side of the map, instead wants to try and make his hay on the right side, but Kiki is able to dash back to the tier 1 tower safely. Blue buff is about to spawn. Cyno might be better served trying to strip that farm away instead of looking for this kill.
Cyno, though, doesn't necessarily know if someone else is going to be rotating on over, and Kiki kind of feigning that his teammates are coming to back him up here. I think that ShadowChair has been spotted out by Divios now, but I don't think the ShadowChair wants to initiate until he's certain that the commit is happening.
Takes the Sentinel right into the path of Divios. I don't know if that was on purpose. I'm a monster at his feet is not going to be enough. Cyno finds the first kill for Splyce. moswal in some trouble on the backside, and Geno puts him into the dirt. KikiSoCheeky is juking around, spinning around now, trying to find a way back out, but the pin from Cyno finds yet another kill.
So far, so good, though, for Splyce. This is the best fight they've had all game so far, and the first time we've really seen them make any sort of impact. But the ring bounce from Weekend, that's incredibly strong. He doesn't have much mana, but he does have a speed buff.
Geno going to try and close that gap. Weekend only needs one more hit, and that is going to let them grab one more kill. So in the end, LG are able to keep things nice and even, at least over here on this solo lane side of the map. But that was a curious fight. You remember how long Kiki sort of held in the air? And even when he landed the knockup, there wasn't a crush. Maybe ShadowChair didn't have it off cooldown, even still, with a way to follow up.
It was just ShadowChair being pinned down inside of that blue buff by Cyno. I think that Luminosity might have been expecting ShadowChair to be a little bit safer, tucked away in that corner, but he couldn't connect with the I'm a Monster, just a little bit too far ahead. Cyno, thanks to the Fatalis effect from going into the Mink form, was able to get behind him in time.
That was great. It was really a great fight from Cyno. I'm right there with you that whole time. Not only able to find the pressure onto ShadowChair so that he couldn't perform optimally, but even finds the pin back, sort of the fadeaway Kobe jumper over the top to get yet another kill. A great play from him on this Erlang Shen. This is a pick that he likes to come back to. It's a comfort pick for him, and we're seeing more and more why. As Splyce looks like they might get a red buff this game. Okay.
A little bit of a positive switch up for the team. They not only get some confidence, I think, from having started off really strong in that solo lane engagement, but also just making sure that the jungle is theirs again.
Are able to reclaim their own timer, so LG can continue to strip them away. But Divios and Kiki both bringing these assassins over here to the solo lane, and we see a lot over here now. We do see warriors, we see some of these mages over here like the Jonqui. We even see guardians as well, but what are they looking for from these assassins as Weekend misses with the Windfire wheels?
But it's not over just yet because KikiSoCheeky came to bail him out. Weekend's low, but so is Cyno, as he's not going to be forced to back away. But Weekend just could not escape from Aror in the end because Divios finds a way to clean him up with the help of Earth and Fury.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Earth and Fury, it pops for a lot, doesn't it, when they're able to grab it. And moswal's not out yet either, just wants to get off the final judgment at least before he dies. That's the right mindset from your mid lane mage. Geno with a great mez is able to make it back to the tier 1 tower line, but fortunately moswal has to fall for it.
Geno just trying to remind Splyce what Aror did to Luminosity throughout all of the last match, and now it's his turn.
He did a good job with it. He's certainly landing those mezzes. Did we see Clout considering the gold Fury there for a moment and thinking better of it? Maybe he was clearing out a ward or something like that. But certainly, I like that he decided to give up on it for now. That might not be an easy task in 8.5 minutes.
Speaking of which, Divios could be in a little bit of trouble here from Kiki. Not too sure if he has that shield up off cooldown just yet, but it's no trouble in the end because Geno chooses to back the base, and in similar suit, Divios falls back also.
But before, they had that bloodbath around the fire giant, I was asking you, what are they looking for from these assassins over here in the solo lane? They wouldn't get from like the warriors or guardians we sometimes see. That both of them have elected to go this route.
I think the game plan here is just for Divios to throw out that Nemesis ultimate to try and make sure that they have the prot removal against whoever they want to fully commit towards, whether it's Kiki or Geno. I think that those are two ideal candidates, but there's no reason that you can't use that Divine Judgment on Weekend, ShadowChair, or Clout either.
Just nice. If you can find a way to squeeze a Nemesis into your lineup, you almost always do, in Divios, one of the few who can very competently play it over here in the solo lane. Looking for the back right, the tower line, but he's got to have vision that there's a lot more in the jungle, but he's not deterred by it. Kind of back anyway, right in the same spot, and should be able to make it out of there.
Kiki also chose to go for the meditation this time around, so his first relic choice, so a little bit more team-oriented in comparison to Divios, who's got the teleport primarily for a quick recovery in the lane.
We aren't seeing as many of these blessings in this game either. Both of our solo laners elected to go without it, and the mid lane mages going for that Book of Thoth rush instead. And I think this is sort of the idea, right? To have them in a spot where you can be a little bit more flexible in this search that you want to go for. A lot of the times you do want them, but sometimes when you want Book of Thoth and that power bank and stacking right away, you go for that. If you want the warrior tab and doing damage right away, I feel like you've got the freedom to do that too.
Speaking of which, I think that Clout trying to exert a little bit of that pressure advantage into Cyclone now going to force that Living Nightmare, no problem whatsoever. If he decides to land in the same spot, it could be a little bit complicated. Instead, going to head straight into the wall here. I'm not sure that there's going to be a whole lot to be done to save him.
Kiki isn't able to land the ultimate, so that means CycloneSpin safely jumping into the wall avoids the tower shot, but this does open up the Gold Fury. The Hunter's way on the other side of the map, and there's no one over here trying to defend. Instead, they're just going to collapse onto the Pyromancer and try and make the trade.
Splyce knew the moment that they pointed out 2 other members were going to be on solo side. Luminosity were undoubtedly going to take that Gold Fury, so you might as well take what's left, and that's always going to be the Pyromancer. So with both global objectives being taken off the map for right now, I would expect Luminosity to be a little bit more reckless even on some of these buff invades for the future, or even just pressuring in the lane in general, because you don't have to worry about some massive swing happening unless you lose the team fight horribly, but based off how the start has been, I don't think that that would be the case here for Lumi.
That's right. There's not nearly as much to lose for making a riskier play now that both those objectives are down as there would be otherwise. But we can take a look at those charts. LG, with their early start where they were invading some buffs, were able to get a bit out in front, about 2,500 gold, about 2,000 experience. But again, just like last game, it's a nice lead to have early, but it certainly hasn't put Splyce away. So Splyce can still fight back into this. LG have to make sure they're being mindful of those risks. But as you said, this is one of those opportunities where the punishment won't be as large if they were to not execute it perfectly.
I'm almost expecting Kiki or Divios to start doing some rotations now. We're approaching the exiting of the laning phases, I feel, for the solo laners at least, because now that they've got level 12 online, they're starting to get a little bit of their defenses going also. I think this is where they could really start to be super effective in maneuvering towards the back line.
And I feel like we saw Divios make a lot of rotations when he was playing the Ratatoskr in Game 1, and he was a really big part of why Splyce was initially out in front at the start of the game. Now, as the game went on, their globals kind of meant a little bit less, and Luminosity were able to come back. But towards the beginning, for sure, they were moving around the map way better, so I'd not be surprised if Kiki tries it too.
This kind of feels like Splyce are just looking to buy time for moswal to hit the mid-late game approach with this Thoth, because that's where we'll really start to see the defenses take off. moswal being really greedy with those purification beads, waiting until the very last second, not trusting that Geno will want to commit the epic uppercut underneath the T1.
And Geno fully sells it too. He sticks in, takes a tower shot or two, and is eventually able to get those beads away from moswal, and now they are going to go for this red buff invade, knowing that the mid-mage can't come in as safely as he could before. I don't know if they recognize it's very, very close to coming up, so they should stay nearby, and Weekend will stay there and certainly grab it.
Weekend's got no troubles clearing out that red buff by his lonesome. In fact, he probably favors it, but now it's all about Kiki. He's up in the air. He's looking to maybe dive onto moswal, but instead will fall back to the rest of his team. They just needed threat. That's all it takes.
That was perfect. He's basically up there saying, if you step into the tower line, I'm going to knock you up, and my friends are going to kill you. That created all the space they needed. They grabbed the tier 1, and Kiki's back over to the solo lane side so that Divios can dive and take this tier 1 or strip away the jungle. That was very, very well timed for LG when you consider the enemy buffs, the tier 1, and their own buffs on the right-hand side.
I like it so far from Luminosity. It's calculated aggression. That's certainly what it feels like. This team is looking like a well-oiled machine, and it's surprising because ShadowChair is new.
He is new to this roster, and it's something I wanted to say is that Weekend is the kind of guy that is going to make the call to do what he thinks will make the team better, and it may not always be the most popular decisions among some of the fans and that sort of thing, but he's trying to win all the time, and he thinks ShadowChair gave this team the best chance to win. And so far, at least here up against Splyce in Game 1 and at the start of Game 2, it's looking like he had the right call. ShadowChair is fitting in well.
ShadowChair just trying to make this Scylla dream stay alive also. He's at level 12 now, so Crush can certainly do the trick, clearing out those midways by himself. And not wanting to risk any collapse from Divios, doesn't try to contest those right mid heartbeats.
Divios is going to trade a little bit here with Kiki. Cyno is going to drop the ultimate. Kiki getting bursted very quickly, going right up into the air, and will just barely be able to make it out of there alive. Divios, though, still wants to make somebody pay. He's going to make weaken the target with the slows, but not much chance for kills here.
Didn't look like a very tanky Ratatoskr, though, unlike what we saw from Divios last game. The Nemesis paying off there, but without both of those ultimates available, I wouldn't be hard-pressed to believe that Luminosity might feel confident now to push up here.
And that was really quick execution between the two of them as well. Divios drops his ultimate. 9 turns Blessing comes right out from Cyno. They pull Kiki back in, and like 1 point of damage it felt like away as Kiki just barely gets out of there and gets into the ultimate. But yet again, looks like the red buff invade successful for LG. They are continuing to try and strip away this part of the jungle from Splyce.
Look at Clout and Weaken right now. Cyclone has to know that they're both here, and sure enough, just immediately turns right back around again. And they don't even risk it. They wait for the crystallized curses to pop all the way before worrying about dropping the purple buff. Just even the smallest chance that it might be stolen out from underneath them is more than enough to prompt Luminosity back.
Gold Fury's back up now as well, Taco, so LG might be looking to try and start their fight there again. They haven't really been able to extend their lead out much from where it was at about the 11-minute mark. We're 16.5 minutes in here now, and they're still about the same distance out in front of Splyce they were then, about 2,000 gold. So this Gold Fury could certainly be where they want to try and stretch that out a little bit more and try and really get control of this game.
Good stun by Aror onto Clout, but this is a level 16 Medusa, and he's got some creeps and friends in the jungle, so Luminosity still feeling confident enough to stay far pushed up inside of Splyce's jungle. They know that Splyce are not really looking for a fight, but the Gold Fury dances are bound to be happening pretty soon here.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Divios has that Blackthorn Hammer finished yet again. And we saw him go for this last game as well. And I thought this might have just been something he was doing with that rat build, but he definitely seems to prioritize this item and this build path that he's gone with now in these 2 games in a row.
And Divios is, without a doubt, one of the best theory crafting pros out there, I would say,
yes,
because the amount of time that he invests inside of the jungle practice, actually, we're going to have to wait a moment to compound on that, because now it's all about Aror getting tossed up into the air. I'm a monster to try and finish him off, but it won't do the trick just yet.
Aror just barely survives, is able to drop that Earth and Fury and get his impact across. Weaken is going to take Divios up into the air. Crush will be waiting for him when he lands, and ShadowChair finds the kill. moswal sends out the final judgment. It does clip Clout, but the rest of LG are healthy enough to where they're going to stick around on this Gold Fury.
And this Gold Fury is getting bursted pretty quickly right now. Cyno did some nice damage there against Weaken, but he just doesn't have the mana bar to continue. In fact, moswal, Cyclone, they were nearby, but not close enough to want to risk engaging there. And it was a worthwhile attempt, I would say, from Divios. Just not enough time to make it happen.
Another clean execution by LG there, Taco. They've been slow and steady, creeping up this lead up against Splyce for 18.5 minutes now, and still going that same way. About 4,000 gold now in their favor after that Gold Fury. Though experience has remained relatively constant, still right around that 2,000 experience or so mark. Splyce has been doing a good job still maintaining some of their farm on their own. The real big difference has felt like, the towers and the Gold Furies really at this point.
Teleport happening right now from Divios, but I'm not too sure they're going to be able to finish off Kiki again. Pyromancer is being aggressed all the while, and he's just going to land right on top of where the rest of his team is at.
Splyce forced him up into the air, but Kiki kind of wanted to go up into the air. He just joined his friends at the Pyro, grabbed one more objective for the team, and LG just feel like they're maybe not a full step, but a half step ahead of Splyce here in this set. And Taco, I think that we got to make sure we're expressing this is really impressive. LG really struggled last split, and Splyce really looked really strong, so they've been able to come back here in the fall and look good. Now, they often look good at the start of the splits. Can they keep that going?
That's the real trick here, Finch. I'm not completely sold just yet. I think that Luminosity always comes in with a split high in that they have their strongest performances during their first couple of sets. What I want to see is the momentum being carried over. Yes, they have the momentum from Game 1 into Game 2, but moving forward into future weeks, if we can see this caliber of play from Luminosity consistently,
Right.
there might be some danger at the upper end.
They've got the talent to get it done as Clout is going to be singled out early on. Cyno is going to be more than enough damage. He's working there together along with Geno. moswal is low. Kiki recognizes it and finds a nice kill, but Weekend's going to fall as well. That's 2 for 1 in favor of Splyce so far, and Divios wants to try and get a little bit more here with ShadowChair.
Good slow now onto ShadowChair, and Cyclone looking to cut him off. Everybody's grouping up, and only one's going to get caught up in the Crystallized Curses Vicious Barrage combo from Cyclone. He's dealing as much as he can with these auto attacks, but it doesn't seem as though it's going anywhere fast.
Fire Giant's been procced, so it's putting in quite a bit of damage of its own. CycloneSpin lands the root right on the tail end. That is going to be the 3rd kill in that fight for Splyce. I believe that's 2 for Cyno as well, as he's been playing very, very well on this Erlang Shen. But there's no Gold Fury, there's no Pyromancer for them to grab as they force out the beats from ShadowChair.
Wow, that Book of the Dead turnaround, but an even better shield reflect from Divios means that ShadowChair won't get the same satisfaction of poke potential going there. But I want to reiterate on what we were just discussing, Finch, and Luminosity as a whole. I think that this team has always carried the potential, whether fans want to believe it or not. You can have your personal viewpoints on the players as much as you like, but you cannot deny the talent and the raw mechanical skill that these players carry.
Absolutely. LG has always been, I felt, a stronger team talent-wise than the level of performance they've been able to put up. And this is the type of game that we've always expected from them every time they come out. We're excited to see this level of play from them, and they're showing it. So hopefully we'll get to see them do it on a little bit more of a consistent basis. But they're looking good here so far. Splyce, though, just answered back with a nice fight. Cyno playing very well for Splyce, is able to get a couple kills. But Luminosity did such a good job kind of cleaning the map the last time they went through that there really wasn't much for Splyce to get.
It was a real sign of life, however, from Splyce in that last engagement. I think a lot of it was just credited to Clout being picked off so early on. I think that Clout, if he's not careful and continues to get picked like that, it could pose a real issue to what their draft is required for, because I think that Petrified plays a large part.
Weekend does find CycloneSpin, who's quick with those beads, so that means he will not get taken up on the wild ride. Windfire Wheel's gonna have to sit on cooldown for a little while, but Luminosity still kind of moving into the jungle of Splyce aggressively either way. ShadowChair and Geno pairing up to take down moswal, as a pause gonna come out here from Divios. Right in the middle of that action. A nice combination there. ShadowChair, man, I don't know what it is. I think LG are just happy to be playing with him. They really seem to have synced well around this Scylla.
Did you see the damage numbers, by the way? 1199, I believe, already.
Gross.
We are at like the mid-game point now for ShadowChair, and he's putting up numbers like that with I'm a Monster. Granted, it was onto moswal, but picks like that when a player is not necessarily safe, but still underneath one of his own structures, and yet ShadowChair still managed to find that kill alongside of Geno. That's a huge complication for Splyce to now try and handle.
Yeah, they've done a really good job, I feel like, of not just aggressing into the jungle of Splyce, but like you said, kind of setting up for ShadowChair, finding those picks to go along with the strip away of the buff camps that they've been taking as well. So it's been excellent play from LG so far. They got that pick, they forced Cyclone back as well and took his purification beads. So now they should have an opportunity, as it looks like we've gone just a tiny bit ahead. They're grouping up here now around this tier 2 tower in mid.
And in case you guys haven't been able to figure it out yet, doesn't look like that I'm a Monster was able to connect onto Aror, but ShadowChair got the one that mattered, and the one that mattered was moswal falling down here. Gold Fury is available as well, and without moswal, I don't really see Splyce feasibly having a way to take this one away.
It doesn't look like they're even going to try. They recognize that they really just can't get that done. Gold Fury now for LG puts them about 7,000 gold out in front, along with that nice tier 2 tower. And look at that spike in experience. Splyce won that one fight. That's why we saw that Splyce down, but now it's right back in LG's favor.
But that just felt so forced of an initiation from Cyno onto Geno. He's the Kumbhakarna. He's just going to mez you and put that to a slow. But now Cyno doesn't have that Erlang Shen ultimate available, won't have a whole lot of regen opportunities like he might have originally been seeking out for. Same could be said, though, for Kiki, who essentially had to burn his Through the Cosmos just to make sure his team was safe.
Splyce were at least considering the Fire Giant, it felt like. They weren't really going to try and get that started up, not with LG nearby, but they're the one with the positional advantage. They've got control of that space. CycloneSpin has more than enough damage to start burning it down as well, but they want Pyromancer, a nice little mini objective they've been able to grab. LG, really no way to get in there and slow it down. And now Splyce moving forward, looking for a pick.
Yeah, moswal is the main one that I'm trying to keep an eye on, because just look at his positioning now. He's 0-5, but because of the fact that Luminosity have been non-stop seeking him out in the back line. Anytime moswal is alive, you can expect that there's someone looking for the flank. Speaking of which, check out Weekend.
Geno is going to be the one looking to be aggressive here, but it is going to be moswal on the left-hand side who's low. He does get the final judgment off. In fact, he's in position to drop a little bit more damage with the glyph. They turn their attention towards Clout on the backside, but he's boxing with Divios and winning the trade quite handily. Aror now has to run for his life, but up in the air sounds like it's Kiki, and he's been crashing down on the Cyclone.
It's all about Aror now trying to buy himself some time, but it's not going to be successful. Weekend also making sure to take out the Chernobog. As annoying as Cyclone has been, they won't have to worry about any living nightmares coming into this Fire Giant.
And yet another one fight for LG. They're not always the cleanest, but they're winning these fights, Taco. That's a Fire Giant, and they've already got one Tier 2 tower. There's only the two left on the two side lanes. The Phoenixes should be exposed shortly to start breaking into the base of Splyce. They do have Thoth, who can be pretty strong on the defense, but LG just are looking strong today.
It just felt like moswal got a little bit confused there in that he was looking for a wraparound effect with the rest of his team, and then Clout spots him out, pursues him on his own accord. Cyclone then is diverted from the original teamfight focus to now try and help out his mid laner, and as a result, both of the carries are just left out in the open and exposed.
And these fights have been a little all over the place, I would say. A lot of the times in the fights, you can kind of follow this thread through where who their focus is. You can see where they're switching. These have been a little bit more frantic, just trying to find kind of whoever's near them and the lowest HP target, it almost feels like. But LG have been certainly thriving in it. They've been hitting the key abilities that they need to. Kiki and Weekend have been doing a good job initiating for these teams and setting up opportunities. And Clout and ShadowChair are right there with the damage.
ShadowChair pushing up this left-hand side with a little bit of assistance from Clout, but Crush should do the trick no problem. I doubt that Splyce is going to actively try to defend this T2 tower. They know that just these two carries alone is going to be enough to take it. Only one tower left standing for Splyce, and that's going to be on solo side, but Kiki by himself, again, can also probably take this one out no problem.
Yeah, Kiki's going to move up and look for this proxy farm, but Splyce certainly recognizes it. They're not going to let Kiki just do whatever it is that he wishes on this side of the map. Divios going to get some free poke in. But now the minions are here to hold tower aggro, and the rest of the team can push on that left-hand side. They can't commit too much attention onto Kiki.
Kiki's trying to be careful here because you could tell with the way that he's maneuvering that he wants to try and help out his team. He wants to get within range for that through the Cosmos to connect underneath that left side Phoenix. There's more waves pushing up, and he's going to rely on proxying the right-hand waves that hopefully his creep wave is going to be able to do the trick.
He's letting, the minions be the ones that actually take down that tower while also keeping the wave pushed up in mid. Kiki's doing a lot of work to split Splyce's focus. Meanwhile, the rest of LG can stay on the left-hand side and try and force this Phoenix down the old-fashioned way. In fact, Kiki walking up and putting in autos onto the Phoenix, but doesn't do quite as much, I think, as he wanted. Now he's going to go up into the air and rejoin the group.
But the left-hand Phoenix is already down. moswal's the one who's left exposed, petrified and destroyed from that through the Cosmos. Kiki's going to find the last hit there, but moswal, the first to fall, and he was the best part of the defense.
He was going to be a key part of it, but they have him no longer. ShadowChair is getting low. He's got to make sure that he's careful. Shell and Meditation come through, keep ShadowChair alive, and they turn it around. 2 quick kills. Cyno and Divios both sit back to base. LG Gaming now 5 members strong, up against 2. Going to try and take down the Titan up against Splyce. CycloneSpin putting in some auto attacks, but poor Aror can't stay alive. Clout gets the kill. Now it's 5v1.
And what would seem like, I'm going to be honest here, Finch, it's a bit of a surprising upset that happened because Splyce looks so strong towards that latter end of that summer split, and now they come into this match, and Luminosity have just elevated their gameplay to an entirely different level than what we've been seeing in the previous splits.
Absolutely, and I don't mean to say that LG are incapable of winning sets, but to do it like this, it's the 2-0 fashion that they do it, right? It's
dominating.
sort of where Splyce looked like they were on the back foot the entire set. That's what I feel like is so impressive. Now, LG, I feel like they have been known, as we said, to have these strong starts. I want to see LG kind of keep this ball rolling into the rest of the split.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see a little bit of a spicy mix-up, I think, if you throw Luminosity's name suddenly into that top 4 area of the North American SPL. But right now, as it currently stands, they're off to a pretty fantastic start because they are one of the teams that's going to end up with that set victory.
Yeah, right now they're undefeated, right? And Space Station Gaming are winless, right? Isn't that how you technically could say it at this point?
This is the weirdest timeline.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess a little bit is. But who's your MVP from Game 2? In Game 1, I feel like Kiki really stood out head and shoulders above the rest. But in Game 2, I think it might be a little bit harder. Any individual performance kind of stick out for you there, Taco?
Game 2 felt a lot more like a collective team effort as opposed to Game 1, where it was very clearly Kiki commandeering his entire team through or towards success. But I think as a whole, it's really hard to pick an MVP for the second one. I would just give it to the whole team.
Well, the whole team played an excellent job. That's why they grabbed that set victory 2-0 over Splyce. LG already looking strong here in fall. We'll get it back over to the desk, break down exactly what happened there in that set.
As it was in summer, so it is in fall. A great start for Luminosity. Now we'll see if they're able to keep it going throughout the weeks, but they can only play the games that we put in front of them. And so far, they come out undefeated. Tolly, is this a victorious moment for Luminosity or more of a disappointing moment for Splyce?
This is more of a disappointing moment for Splyce. This is LG going through Brock in the Pewter City, getting the first badge. Now they got to go climb to get to Misty and be able to take her out as well. And that's going to be the trifectas of the world in the CLGs.
Which starter did they go for? Because if you're going for Charmander, beating Brock is actually not, it's kind of impressive. It's not quite as easy. If you go for the other one, it's a little bit easier. Bulbasaur is the worst starter of Generation 1, and I won't hear any other arguments about that. You know who the best starter is for Luminosity in Game 2? Not Geno, but it actually is Geno, because he is your MVP for Game 2. This Kumbhakarna, man, he was fed. And fed Kumbhakarna is a scary, scary thing.
My man was fragging. I think at one point in the game he was 4-0-4. Didn't have the most damage in the world, but he did it when it mattered for the lethal aspect, whether it was the assist or the last hit confirmed. Even getting body blocked, it doesn't matter. Root through the wall. Weaken takes out CycloneSpin on the backside. And I gotta go back to the composition for Divios specifically. Picking this Nemesis solo lane doesn't really work in the late game point. Where if you don't carry in the early game, where's your control really coming from? Now, the damage is certainly there. He was, I think, the top player damage for a majority of the game, if not at the very conclusion of it, even despite going for the same exact low nose mask, Blackthorn's hammer build, which lacks a lot of damage, but it's just a sheer kit of Nemesis providing the damage. But just only having a slow is not enough to really control team fights.
Doesn't bring that exactly. Doesn't bring that same amount of control that you're used to. You're basically hoping that your team communication of, okay, I'm killing this guy now, and your whole team can kind of collapse on it. Didn't end up working out. Also, moswal didn't have a particularly impressive performance here today, not just in Game 1, but now in Game 2, 0-6 for him in that game, a little bit rough. So that's it for today as far as live games. Let's take a look at what you can see throughout the rest of the week, or excuse me, we'll do that in a moment. Standings coming up first, and as Finch pointed out, look at that, Luminosity on top of North America, tied with CLG and E-United. Every team with a 2-0 victory here today. If you missed yesterday, Dignitas Rival and Obey Alliance all won their sets. Obey Alliance the only win that took an extra game and went to 3. So now let's take a look at the schedule so you can expect to see what you can expect tomorrow and on Friday. Just two SPL games these next 2 days. Minor League will be in the mornings and afternoon, so these will start at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Energy versus Dignitas is a pretty good one to start it out with.
Yeah, but look at Friday. Trifecta Space Station, but more importantly, LG versus E-United, going from Pewter City all the way to the Final Four up against E-United. They had a dominating performance today against Space Station.
Certainly a big litmus test for that team. Excited to see it. Let's take a look at the broadcast schedule. As I mentioned, we'll see Minor League Thursdays and Fridays. SGS is Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Now, normally on Mondays, we have Esports Weekly at 10 a.m. and following that, Console League between Xbox and PS4. But this Monday is a holiday here in America, so we are going to be taking Monday off. There will be no broadcast this Monday, September 3rd. You can still expect Esports Weekly bright and early Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm sure everyone will be making fun of me on that show, so make sure you come along and say nice things about me to defend me in the chat.
Are we getting F-Dot or F-Dot 2.0?
Probably F.dot, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, actually, maybe F.dot 2.0, so that way people will actually show up. F.dot 2.0 is
I'm a
Finch
fan.
on Esports Weekly.
I'm
so,
a fan
yeah,
of the
you get,
Finch.
you get your chance. If you want to meet F.dot or his 2.0 counterpart, you can actually check them out at hi-rez expo, hi-rezexpo.com, November 16th through the 18th. It's our biggest event of the year. This year, it's a DreamHack Atlanta. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you also get ready to get your after-party tickets. They aren't available right now. We're selling them in waves, so if you really want to buy one, you just have to wait a little bit, but make sure as soon as those become available, you jump on top of it. You know, we had a lot of people buy those first round of after-party tickets. Make sure you get in on the next round because you need to get your ticket and be there because it is one of the most fun, if not the most fun, parts of HRX every single year. Tolly, what was your favorite part of today?
Honestly, it was actually seeing ShadowChair go transition from Game 1 to Game 2 in this last previous set. Lackluster performance in Game 1, but certainly stepped it up in number 2.
Today was a really good day of SPL games, but I had a pretty good turkey and croissant sandwich, so that wasn't bad for me. I don't know.
Not so shabby.
Not saying it was the highlight. I'm just saying it wasn't the low light of my day. You know what I mean? All right, fair enough. Thanks, everyone, for watching. From all of us here at Skillshot Studios, Casters Production, everybody, especially John Funch. He wanted me to specifically say thank you for watching. We'll catch you tomorrow. You can go ahead and peach it.